Hi, everybody. I can't believe this is our last week. Lindsay here. I did the final project along with Gay. We actually had a really unique opportunity. We did our final project on the company that she has already started called I'm Fat So What, which I think was really cool because we had the opportunity to kind of analyze what they have already done and what they've tried and then take a real look at where they're trying to go. So that was really exciting. So I've included the PDF that we created in the post, but I'll just kind of talk through some of the main points. So if you'd like to follow along, you can. To kick it off as a little bit of background, the slogan for Gay's business is because beauty comes in different sizes, which is really basic, but I think does a really good job of kind of describing where they're coming from and why they exist. The plus size market in Asia is really, really, really underserved, which is something that I've come to understand more and more through working with Gay. And I think a big part of that is a cultural stigma. And then on top of that, it's really hard for women there to find options at all, but especially options that are flattering and make them feel beautiful. So she's really doing some really cool, innovative stuff in this market that kind of pushes the envelope and creates fills a void, basically, that has been unmet for a really long time. So that's pretty cool. So the business model, the value proposition is, of course, that this is the first company of its kind to target the highly underserved plus size market in Asia. So the company is a brand that works to break down the stigma around being plus size while also offering really beautiful clothing and styling services to women of all sizes so that they can participate in fashion. Customer segment is plus size women in Asia, but I'll get into more detail in that in a little bit. Customer relationships. So new customers are acquired primarily through social media marketing and retained through really high quality customer service. And they have kind of a unique thing since they're doing styling too. A lot of the customers will have a one-on-one relationship with somebody that works there, which is unique. Channels would be social media, online stores like Marketplace and Amazon and other self-owned e-commerce sites, and then a showroom for the project, sort of how Warby Parker started out. Revenue streams, the big one right now is fees collected for styling services, then eventually online retail sales of clothing and accessories, sales from showrooms across cities in Asia, and then strategic advertising placements from other well-aligned brands. Key resources would definitely be the designer team, pattern maker, plus size tailor, social media supervisor, a stylist, online sales coordinator, brand ambassadors, keeping in mind that all of those things are even more challenging than they are in the States because of the fact that they're breaking into this market. Key activities, definitely strategic marketing and outreach, deliver on the promise of quality. So it's really easy to say you're going to give women something great. The company wants to make sure that they are actually doing that. Building relationships and then staying fresh in the online retail world by offering clothing that's continuing to be relevant, which has been a big issue in most plus size markets. It seems like they're a little bit more behind the times on the trends, but I'm Fat So What is working really hard to be on trend all the time. Key partnerships. A garment supplier is huge. It's hard to find one in Thailand, but that's a big part, obviously, of the e-commerce side of the business. Small contractors for manufacturing, and then bloggers, magazine editors, and social media gurus would be huge because of the grassroots media approach. The showrooms, the styling clients, and the web developers, those are kind of self-explanatory. And then the cost structure, the things to consider are the material costs, the contractors pay, the logistical costs, online store commissions, since they're operating through other marketplaces, not their own quite yet, showrooms commissions, and then of course employee salary and general overhead. So that was kind of a mouthful. To get into the target customer, we talked about this a little bit when we did the avatar activity, but to refresh your memory, the I'm Fat So What target customer is female. She's Generation Y, so between 25 and 40, plus size, upper middle class in East Asia. And her buying motives are to feel more confident and comfortable in her own shape and to look more professional, fashionable, and stylish. The customer relationship is really, really big. So much of what the company does is sort of a reciprocal relationship, not just with the styling, but also with the marketing. I think part of breaking down the stigma and making the business successful is that the customers really need to feel like they are able to participate. So that would be done with including them in media campaigns and those sorts of things, which I'll get into a little bit later. Delivering the message. So the marketing plan definitely has a big emphasis on social media. I think that's so huge right now, and especially in this specific market, that's the best way to reach people that aren't necessarily participating in fashion initially. You can reach kind of an untapped market that way. And you can dig kind of more. We have some more details in the document on that. The competitive landscape. So for strengths, I'm Fat So What is the first to the market, which is huge. They have the advantage of not having to worry about quite a bit of competition yet. They have a really solid understanding of the plus size market and the customers in Asia. The integrated model is really big too. It's kind of a one-stop shop. It's styling, retail, workshops, and the advocacy component. The brand is strongly linked to the owner, which makes it a really easy brand identity. It's serving a major need, and it already has a solid fan base. The weaknesses, since nobody has done this before in that market, there's no lead to follow. There's nobody to learn from their mistakes. It kind of has to be trial and error on their end. It's really hard to find an experienced designer or manufacturer that can handle plus size clothes, especially in Asia, since that's not a traditionally served market. The options for materials and supplies are also pretty limited. And like I said, it kind of has to be a one-stop shop or a jack of all trades because there is nowhere else for customers to go. So the more that they can offer is great because it's serving the customer, but you also have to be aware of if you are doing all of those things well and staying true to your brand, which creates some potential for issues. As far as opportunities, there are endless opportunities because the market is previously untouched, so they are paving the way. You can come up with creative ways to communicate. There's no real need to be afraid of failures because nobody else has done it, so there's nothing to compare you to. There's also a really, really unique and cool opportunity to set the standard and shape the market since they are the first ones in. They can take a look at what works and what doesn't for Western brands, but I think since the market is a little bit different, that won't all apply. And then growth of the online retail component will be huge in the future. And then expansion of the styling component by adding a team for people to do that. As far as threats, there aren't really any barriers of entry. So while they are the only person doing this now, or only company, doing this now, competitors will probably eventually follow. And at that point, you have to decide what to do to set yourself apart. Sometimes eventually being the first doesn't always necessarily keep you at the front of the pack. So they'll have to be really intentional about paying attention to that and remaining innovative. There are threats from negative feedback from people that aren't in the plus size market, especially since that's a cultural component there. Bigger brands from Western countries could be entering Asia, and since they're already well established and have done their trial and error, that could be a difficulty. It's hard to find inventory in the local market, and the logistical costs are a little bit higher there. Main competitors, they're pretty limited there, but like I said, the ones in the US and Europe and Australia are starting to jump in and serve this market. And then the competitive advantage, like we've already talked about quite a bit, is that they're the first brand to dedicate themselves fully to all plus size women in Asia. And it has already gained quite a bit of publicity, which is great. It's gaining traction and gaining speed. So how the business works, this is more of like down into the nitty gritty. They are working right now to kind of establish partnerships with logistical companies for the supply side and for the sales side. So that's kind of the direction that things are going. Maintaining the styling side of the business while also offering online retail so that things are more accessible to a wider client base. And there's more detail on that in the written part. And then now for the most fun part, innovations for the future. So like I said earlier, it's really important that they remain cutting edge as a company because eventually people will start to catch up. So some things to consider that Gay and I came up with that could be Potential innovations for the future would be incorporating a subscription service with a stylist so that you could reach people that are a little bit further out and couldn't meet in person. So that could be similar to the model of Dia & Co. or Stitch Fix, but for the Asian market. A virtual dressing room on the website could be a really cool option, especially for people that are trying out clothes that they wouldn't normally try. A shopping option integrated into social media, that's starting to pop up here in the States, and I think that could be a really cool option for I'm Fat So What. A body positivity video campaign that could be aired on TV and online. I think that would be huge in this market in helping to break down the barriers. And then on the quote unquote selfish side, it would also drive customers to their website. And then blogger design partnerships could also be really cool. I think street style is awesome and a big thing in that market. And there is potential to collaborate with people that are cutting edge and could do some really cool things. So, like I said, that's a mouthful. There's a ton of information in our document that we included, and we would love to hear any questions or feedbacks or tips. Like I said, this is kind of a real-life example, incorporating what Gay's company, I'm Fat So What, has already done and where we thought that they could potentially go. So I'm sure that she would welcome any feedback that she could incorporate into the business, and I would also love to hear your feedback since we've been putting our heads together on this one. So, yeah, I'm so glad that I got to work with all of you, and I'm kind of bummed that we're at the end of the class. But like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot us a message. Thanks. Bye.